The COVID-19 pandemic has led to one of the most unconventional campaign seasons I have experienced in my lifetime, and I've experienced a lot. In the past few months, as rallies and gatherings became a thing of the past, social media and digital targeting to reach voters became more important and more visible. To unpack these dramatic changes and understand what that could mean for the Democratic ticket of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, I'm joined by two of the smartest political strategists in this town. Neera Tanden, the president and CEO of the Center for American Progress, and Maria Cardona, principal of the Dewey Square Group. Thanks to you both for joining me today. I felt, it's great to see you both. Let me start with Neera, whom I've, talked about, how a campaign and how a party gets policy right. Neera, what has become tougher? What has become easier in connecting a campaign and a convention to policy in the COVID era?
Well, I think it's a lot harder to do the traditional things like meeting people and engaging directly face to face. It's hard to get that feel. But actually, what we find is that people are much more focused on the news than they've been in the past. So people are looking for information. They're engaging. They're more engaged in this election than in most elections. And the enthusiasm to vote is very high. So it's really about trying to connect people where they are, which is most people are now online, and thinking through creative ways to get them there.
Maria, you have worked with the Latino community. I look at you as someone that looks at the broad plate of voters in the country, but you also specialize in the Latino vote. How is this going for them? Because does the online experience, the online connectivity that I know you've been working on, does that work well in this time compared to, what the Trump team was talking about door knocks?
You know what, Steve, it does. And first of all, good morning, and thank you for having us. It's great to be here. It does work well. And you know why? And you know this, Steve, because you've been at many events that I have been in Latino organizations, that the Hispanic community is younger overall. The median age of the Hispanic voter in the country is younger than the overall mainstream population. And we disproportionately use online platforms, digital platforms. We get our news digitally in English and in Spanish. And so I think it actually is a platform that has engaged Latino voters, especially younger Latino voters, while the older Latino voters are still engaged by the more traditional broadcast news, radio, which is still a really important platform to reach Latino voters. So I think that when you're looking at a campaign that wants to reach the overall Latino community, they have to use, and I know that the Biden-Harris campaign is doing this, they have to use all of the platforms and traditional forums, media forums that are available to them. And that's, I think, what is so exciting about this campaign is that, everything is on the table, and all of the tools that have led us to be able to reach, as Neera said, everyone where they are going to be incredibly valuable in this campaign.
Let me ask you both. And, Neera, you were advising the the Hillary Clinton campaign early on, then the Obama campaign. I've known you through so many different campaigns on the policy side. And I guess my question is, when you're in a time where wherever you look in the country right now, whether it is this pandemic, whether it is unemployment and what's going to happen downstream with the economy, which is not the stock market, these are not the same things. When you look at what's gone on with racial injustice, economic injustice, and inequality, when everything is burning at the same time, how do you get a coherent dashboard? And you're a real pro at this, both of you. What is the coherent dashboard in communicating with Americans that the Biden-Harris ticket can provide something coherent in an incredibly chaotic moment?
Well, I think you'll see a lot of this week. I think a theme that is one that Vice President Biden has talked about, Senator Harris has talked about, is really the twin pandemics. So we obviously have a pandemic, coronavirus, and our economic dislocation, disruption, and real economic pain is a result of the mishandling of the virus. So responding to the virus and a better response to the virus and the economy go hand in hand. But we also have a long simmering virus pandemic, which is racial injustice. And I think the Biden-Harris campaign and the conversation this week is really going to talk about both of these issues. And also, essentially, leadership and the difference of leadership for these twin pandemics. But on racial justice, It could not be more stark. We have a president who sows racial division, and he has a team in response, the Biden-Harris campaign, which is all about actually the opposite of that, embracing our diversity, trying to push against divisiveness. You'll hear all this week about how we need a president who is the president of all Americans, how we need an administration that is willing to represent Republicans, Democrats, and independents. Will be the president for people who vote for him and the people who don't vote for him, which is the opposite of the message we've heard for the last 4 years.
Maria, how do you see that dashboard of priorities? And I'm just going to piggyback on that for a moment. What do you think the biggest challenges, the tough spots for the Biden-Harris ticket are going to be?
I think that the biggest challenges, they have now, frankly, made that a positive. And I'll tell you why. You know, going into this, there has been some struggle with the Joe Biden campaign connecting with Latino voters. We are now seeing that Latino voters are more excited to vote for him than they ever have before. And part of that was the selection of Kamala Harris. And to Neera's point, the Joe Biden-Kamala Harris ticket is all about steady leadership, is all about bringing the country together. And I think critically what you're going to see this week, Steve, is how this ticket is going to offer America a pathway with leaders that takes us out of the constant chaos and crisis and into an era of health and safety and economic opportunity for all, based on facts, based on science, based on civility, based on humanity, really taking back the soul of the nation, which was the one really incredibly important and powerful narrative that Joe Biden used when he first got into this campaign.
Let me ask you both something a little bit delicate here. During the Russia investigation, the Mueller investigation, Kamala Harris, I had an opportunity to speak with her, and she praised Senator John McCain, and she praised other officials that were not the rank and file of Democratic Party leadership and said, you know, the fate of our nation rests with some of these other people. I was very impressed by the maturity of that and to some degree the bravery of that. But that is a flag for many that she is not from the left flank, that she can see competencies and even find common cause. Is that going to work for, is the party going to be unified enough, Neera, to understand that, you know, sometimes you do need to, you know, see the benefits that the late Senator McCain brought at that time? And so I'm interested in right now in, you know, where you draw a line between one party and the other, and then that magnanimity of showing something across the line and whether that will cost particularly Kamala Harris in the eyes of some of those that support the Democratic Party. Neera?
Yeah, I think this is really just a data question. I mean, I think there's a lot of narrative about division, et cetera, but this is really a data question. The data is really clear about this. The Democratic Party has, writ large, has fully embraced Senator Harris as the VP. In a series of polls over the last several days, she has strong support amongst Democrats, really incredible support, and strong support amongst independents. So I think there's a media narrative about division. But Joe Biden right now is getting 95% of Democrats and, you know, essentially 90% of Senator Sanders supporters. And I would like to tip my hat to Senator Sanders because he's done a great job of helping unify. But I also think that Democrats are hungering. Many Democrats are hungering for a time where politics is not warfare. And so I think you will see tonight the Democratic Party is featuring a Republican speaking, because it is important for us to communicate that we want that Republicans are welcome to vote for Joe Biden. And the reason why that should matter to every Democrat is you want as large a vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as possible to bring along a Senate. So I think that I think that there is strong recognition in the party, even in the Democratic Party, even in the Democratic primary, multiple candidates talked about reaching out to Republicans, independents, and Democrats. And I think that is a critical message for Democrats over the next 2.5 months.
Thank you for that. Maria?
I totally agree. And you know what else, Steve? When you have Kamala Harris doing exactly what you just said, and then you have the Trump campaign trying to attack her as a radical leftist, that's why those attacks won't work. because she is all about unifying not just the Democratic Party, but the country. And voters are really hungry to look at their leaders and see them as people of principles, as people of values, as people, frankly, with experience. They have had it with a president that has no idea and, frankly, no interest in governing. You have the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris ticket that wants to take us out of this pandemic, keep all of Americans safe, open up the economy safely, and you have a president that is trying to figure out how to put his face on Mount Rushmore. I think that is the stark contrast that you're going to be seeing this week.
You know, one of the powerful things that Representative Gwen Moore just said is we need white women. We need white women out there to join. But Neera, you're a prominent Indian American woman heading a major institution. Maria, you have the tie-in with the Latino community in America. How do you both take advantage of identity in this time, but also make it big tent? Is that going to be easy or hard in this moment? Neera?
I'll just start by saying I think this is the space where I'm most hopeful. I mean, think of it this way. The president, in the aftermath of the George Floyd protests, tried to use that as a wedge issue. He attacked the protesters. He fired on protesters with tear gas. And the American people rejected that. White voters, overwhelmingly, white women, overwhelmingly rejected the division. I actually think in the face of Donald Trump, we are seeing a broad coalition made up of people of color, women, white college-educated voters who are repelled at this at the division and really hate spewed by the administration. So I think Kamala Harris is, and you see this again in the data, women, all women, white women, women of color, all women can take pride in the fact that we have a woman and a woman of color as the VP nominee. And you're seeing that. All women are taking pride in her in this selection.
Maria, I'd love to get your thoughts as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Let me add to that. Not just a woman of color, but the daughter of immigrants twice over who understands at her heart, at her core, the immigrant experience. And let me tell you what else, Steve. When I went down to the border 2 years ago at the beginning of the crisis, when the Trump administration made it a policy to separate children from their mothers, to rip babies from the arms of their mothers, I looked around in terms of the people who were protesting, and I saw a lot of white women. And guess what happened in the November midterm elections? White women fled the Republican Party because they hated what they were seeing in terms of an administration that put a policy in place that essentially led us to U.S.-sanctioned kidnapping. And now we have generations of children who will never know who their family is because of what the Trump administration has done. Women understand this at their core, no matter their color. And that is what we're seeing in terms of the unity of what we're going to be talking about in this convention. Yes, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden absolutely understand the experience of communities of color and have fought for communities of color their whole political lives. But white women, mainstream Americans, everybody understands what's at stake in this election, and that is the soul of this country. And they want civilized leadership. They want human leadership. They want leaders that understand that we are all stronger, united together, and that our diversity is not something to be attacked, but is something to be uplifted.
Let me just ask you both, as we wrap this up, I have to admit that our opening on this kind of dealt in a kind of simple, almost a sterile way with this issue of social media, digital targeting, as if it's all kumbaya and easy. But that world has become very murky. It's become filled with lots of danger. There have been a lot of mistruths out there. And I guess as you sort of see the Democratic Party machinery working through this, whether it's in the Latino community or any other community, how hard is it to get back to conveying enthusiastic, truthful messages, or how much do you have to be on the defensive? So I just want to take the gloss off that question and say, what is the muck really like? And is the machinery prepared to deal with it? Maria?
You know what, Steve, that's such an important question because you're right. It is a huge challenge. And in fact, one of my partners at the Dewey Square Group is really working on the disinformation campaign that is out there. And there are a lot of partners, a lot of allies, and now we're seeing more from Facebook and Twitter, and thankfully, and we need to see more from them as well as the other digital platforms that are calling out that misinformation, that are calling out those lies. The media is also incredibly important when doing this. We are also seeing more reporters that are calling out that kind of misinformation campaign that is absolutely coming from the Trump administration every single day. So we have to look at it as a huge challenge. We have to be alert. We have to be on the defensive on this, but then go on the offense and tell all of our voters that they need to be careful too. They should be vigilant in terms of the kinds of news that they then share with their networks and share with their friends. I have many times told my own friends, hey, look, this is not true. Please don't share this. Please look at what you're sharing and understand where it's coming from. So it is a huge challenge, but I do think that our Democratic allies and the Democratic networks writ large are ready to take this on, and we need to do everything that we can to ensure that what we are sharing is true and call out every single misinformation, misguided attempt and lie that is going to be coming from the other side.
Thank you for that. Neera Tanden, how do you think folks are going to navigate the social media muck?
Well, I think we should think of organizations and individuals. Individually, Maria is absolutely right. You have to be very vigilant about manipulation online. But for organizations, I think there's really two things. One, you need to call out lies when you see them. There's always this question about elevating a lie, but there are groups that need to basically say what lies are, because it's really hard to determine. But I also think we need to have pressure on social media institutions like Facebook. We do have a basic problem, which is that there are lies told by political leaders, lies on ads are not scrutinized. There's free form, and that basically aids disinformation tactics. It's really important for all of us to pressure social media forums like Facebook, like Twitter, but particularly Facebook, which is very powerful in an election. I mean, more money is going to be spent on Facebook than any other medium. And it's vital that people recognize and pressure Facebook to actually ensure that they are not just a tool that weaponizes disinformation to undermine democracy.
Well, I want to thank you both. Neera Tanden, a great friend so many times. I look forward to talking to you more, hopefully this next week.
Great to be with you, Steve.
President of the Center for American Progress, Marie Cardona, another great friend, principal of Dewey Square Group, and the founder there of Latinovations. I love that name and all the work you do with that Latino community, but I know many more as well. So thank you both, and also to Congresswoman Gwen Moore for helping to launch our coverage this week of all of the things that are going on with the Democratic National Convention. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Steve.
Thank you.